You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension with your host, Kerry Greenaway, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Hello, everybody. Now, you may realise this isn't Kerry Greenaway talking right now on this episode of Spirit Dimension. It's actually Penny from Haunted Histories who've stepped into Kerry's very hard to fill shoes, because I'm lucky enough to be conducting an interview with my good friend from across the pond, who's also going to be appearing at the Sage Paracon on the 8th to the 11th of November. Mr. Richard Estep. Hi Rich, how are you?
Good, Penny. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Have you got your passport already? You've dusted it off, ready to come over here again?
I've got one of each, an American and a British one. Let's see which one I'm going to use.
Oh, you show off. You show off. 2 passports. Is that so if you lose one, you've always got another?
Yeah, one gets me through the line at Heathrow and one gets me through the line at Denver a lot faster.
I can imagine, having stood in that immigration line in the US on a couple of occasions. I don't know if they could move it any slower.
Yeah, we could be more welcoming too, I think.
Could we?
At US immigration, we could be a little more welcoming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they deliberately make it go as slow as possible when it's non-American citizens, in my experience. But hey, that's politics. We won't talk about that one. So you're coming over to the UK in November?
Yes, it's always good to come home.
Have you still got much family?
I do. I've got my brother and sister and nieces, and now I've got a grandnephew that was born just a few weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you a great uncle?
I'm a bloody good uncle.
How's your niece doing? Is she doing okay?
She's doing fine. She's still at that stage where he's the apple of her eye, and her eyes are looking kind of tired and puffy now, But,
I remember well.
She's going to be a great mum, so a shout out to my niece Bethany and to my nephew Harry. Nephew Harry.
I did see the pictures that you posted. I know you're not a baby person. I am a baby person. My ovaries do a little jump when there's a new baby, and then I remember the sleepless nights and everything else, and think, yeah, I'm quite happy to let other people deal with that side of it now.
I'm a pet person. I love my pets, and I don't have to send them to university in 18 years.
No, you do like, what you got? Is it a dog and 2 cats you've got at the moment?
Yeah, a dog and 3 black cats.
Oh, it's 3 black cats, is it?
Yeah.
What the cat's called?
So we've got the Stig, which shows how long we've had him, right? Back when Top Gear was still good. We've got Gwen and we've got Clem Fandango.
Clem Fandango?
Yeah, I'm a Toast of London fan. It's from, I'm a big Toast of London fan. If you don't watch that show, you should. It's awesome.
Okay, that's a very cool name. Very cool name.
Matt
and
Bear.
What's your puppy? And you've got your very cute puppy dog.
Yeah, I do. That's Lilith.
Who
She's
savages
staring
you
at me
whenever
now.
you come home.
She does. She's staring at me now through the closed office doors because I've dared to shut her out of the office while we do an interview.
Well, talking about the cats, one of them just did try to scare you, didn't they? When we were talking before we started recording.
we were doing the pre-record, I was sitting here watching out the corner of my eye, the gym bag. My gym bag goes sliding across the floor in the hallway. It looked very paranormal and creepy until I saw the tip of a black tail sticking out, and that debunked itself very neatly.
Yeah, but you know that certain investigators would have been shouting demons and witches and everything else.
Oh, absolutely. Some would have been swearing and screaming and stuff like that.
And we were just sitting there sort of going, oh, the bag's just moved. Where's the cat? Yeah.
In this house, the answer to what was that is almost always a cat.
Yeah, but is it one of the three who's the worst, or are they always bad as each other?
You know, Clem Fandango's a bit of a git. He really is.
In what way?
Well, he's the most adorable of them all, and he trades on it, I think. He looks like a little tiny werewolf. And he knows it, and so, you know, he trades upon it, gets away with murder.
I thought it was Lilith who gets away with murder.
Well, she does, but that's a whole different level of adorable with a dog in it.
Well, yeah. Mine's lying on the floor right now, sort of. She's a bit fed up with the hot weather, and she's old. She's 12 and a half, so she's getting to the sort of, I can't be bothered with all this malarkey at the moment. She just.
I know how she feels.
Yeah. Yeah, but what's that in dog years? 12 and a half, so 70.
I didn't know there'd be a maths quiz with the interview.
89. That's about 89 years old, isn't it, in dog years? 7 times.
Like I said, I know
12.
how she feels.
Yeah. Yeah, bless her. She still has her moments, though. She just...
It's not the years, is it? It's the mileage.
Yeah, she looks good. She does look good, and she still gets excited when we come home, so that's always... And she still barks at the door, even though I know that she'd lick someone to death rather than do anything guard doggy, but she's cute. She's a cutie, and she's a black dog. She's a black dog.
She is?
She's a Labrador cross golden retriever.
Oh.
She's a sweetie. She is a sweetie. So, animals aside, who's going to be looking after the animals then when you come over here?
Oh, that'll be my wife, Laura. She has Pet Watch, so they'll be in charge, and she'll be feeding them, basically, is the way it always works.
I like the sound of that. So, you're coming over here to do Sage. You're going to be bringing some of your books with you that you've written. How many is it you've written now, Rich?
It's really kind of shameful. I can't give you the exact number, innit? I'm looking up at my bookshelf now, which is full of everybody else's books but mine.
But you've done fiction and non-fiction, haven't you?
Yeah, it's about 15 in that bulb, especially with the ones that I have that are waiting to be published. It's about 15.
But you only started writing in, 2013?
I did, but I like to write every day. You know,
right.
People. I know a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'd love to write, I don't have the time." In the same way, I'd love to have a marathon, but I don't have the time. Love to do a marathon, rather. I had plenty of marathons back before they became Snickers.
Yeah, I was going to say they don't call them that anymore.
You know, but people that do, you run, right, Penny? As I recall, you're a runner.
Yes. Well,
and so
yeah.
You train, right, every day or close as you can manage, and that's how, before you know it, you're running 26 miles. It's the same way with writing. You do a bit every day, and it really mounts up.
Well, it was your advice to do that I started writing. I'll admit I don't get it done every single day because I have to write other things as well, and sometimes I am all mused out. But I aim to do 500 words of something every day.
That's the nice thing about the muse, is that I only work when the muse strikes. That's a great quote. I don't know who it was, but if you sit down Monday morning, 9 a.m., the muse turns up when you sit down to work most of the time. Yeah,
well, see, because I have to write scripts for my show, I write the blogs, I'm writing my book as well. Some days I'm more of a blog mode, some days I'm in more of a script mode. It depends what mood I'm in as to what I write, but I try and get into the habit of writing every day.
Some days I'm in a can't be asked mode, quite honestly.
Most days I'm in that.
You know what I do on those days? I know what I'm gonna write. I know what I have to write. So I will do 100 words, just 100 words, and I will go do something else. And I'll come back. I'll do another 100 words, and I'll go get the post or have a cup of tea or something, or watch the telly for half an hour, and then I will do that 10 times. And before I go to bed, I've got my 1,000 words in. So
you do it in bite-sized chunks.
It works. It really, really does.
So which was the first book you wrote?
It was In Search of the Paranormal was the first volume in my ghost hunting, I guess, autobiography.
Yeah.
And that went into a second print run. In fact, the sequel's out. I'll be bringing that to Sage.
Okay.
And that just covers some of my favorite cases in the UK and the US.
Yeah. Well, I think it's chapter 7 in that one. my memory's not that good. I'm actually looking at it right now.
Mine's not that good, and I wrote it. Don't you worry.
Page 111. It was your chapter, Moving to America.
Yeah.
And you talk about coming over to America from the UK in 1999.
Uh-huh.
What can you talk about? What made you move across the pond? And does your body clock still run on Greenwich Mean Time?
It's kind of both. So I came across the pond in '99 for two reasons. Number one, I had a job with an American computer company, and number two, I married an American woman.
Right.
So we looked at where we were going to settle down, and the cost of living was just a lot less in the U.S. And Colorado is a gorgeous state. It really is beautiful. It's got mountains. It's got, you name it, Colorado has it. So it seemed like a pretty easy decision to make, and we ended up settling down, and I'm still here. I get back to the UK maybe twice a year, every year, see my friends, see my family. And I love coming home. You know, it's always so good to come home, like landing at Heathrow. And it's just, I'm the only man I know that I get out at Heathrow and I see that grey overcast sky. And if I'm really lucky, it's raining and I've got a smile on my face.
So you've been over in the States now 19 years, and you work as a paramedic.
I do.
Did you work as a paramedic when you first went out there?
No, I was in IT. I was a computer guy. I was also in the TA back in the UK. And initially the Royal Anglians, and then they made us a Royal Logistic Corps unit, lorry drivers. And I really missed the camaraderie of being in a military unit. And I also like the idea of service. You know, I'm kind of wired to serve in some capacity or other. I'll always have a uniform job, I think. And I missed it, so I was looking at going into the National Guard or the Army Reserves here in the States, and then September 11th happened, and I was so impressed with the bravery shown by the firefighters and EMTs and police officers on 9/11. I said, you know, that's how I would like to serve my community. So I went to the fire station that day and signed up, and was a firefighter for, 15, 16 years.
And it was through that you trained as a paramedic?
Yeah. Over here, you don't get to work on the fire department without being an emergency medical technician. So they paid for me to go to school, got my degree in paramedicine, and continue to do that to this day.
Cool. I must admit, anyone who follows Richard on Facebook will every so often see pictures of IVs being put in and various things being trained, because you now train other paramedics, don't you? You train people to do emergency medicine.
I teach in a paramedic academy. I'm the training officer for several agencies, fire departments, and stuff like that, and I love doing that.
Cool. Now, one of the things I found, I wondered is, do you notice much of a difference between the way the Americans approach paranormal investigating to the way the British approach it?
Demons.
That's because you lot have basements. We don't have basements. That's why you have demons.
Yeah, those well-known entities, the basement demonic dwellers. I've noticed that in America you're much more likely to hear that word thrown out, and I think it's because Britain seems to. You're looking at one country that's very secular and one that's very much less so.
Yeah.
So I think that's a key part of it. But I know there are parallels. When I first started doing this in 1995, there were very few people I knew that did it. It was a very small community, and now it's become a huge tourist thing, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Paranormal tourism's a thing. Paratourism. These companies spring up everywhere, and sometimes they don't survive that long. But more and more people are turning to this as what they do on the weekends, and that's true on both sides of the pond.
Right.
But I think generally though, people that are into the paranormal are just into the paranormal.
Yeah.
And I like that mindset. I like anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff. I love talking about, well, what do you feel is going on? And, you know, I love that approach. That's why I'm really looking forward to Sage and to meeting some more of those people that are part of that tribe.
Yeah. I just wondered if you noticed much, any difference in, say, the demons thing is the main thing I can, I see from when I read descriptions from people I know over in America but as you say, a lot of them are actually quite religious based as well. So I do wonder if that's I did an investigation recently at Drakelow Tunnels again in the UK. I love that place.
On my bucket list.
Is it? Oh, you must go there. I love it. It's cold though. It's so cold down there.
That's the only bad thing about ghost hunting. I usually come over in February.
Oh.
So I lived at 39 Gray Street, the hostel, for a week. It was like being in the TA again, getting rained on and frozen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I need to come do some British cases in the summer.
You do. Well, Drakelow, it doesn't matter whether you're there in the winter or the summer, it's always cold. It does not
really?
change. Yeah, I mean, I was there, 13th of July, and it was an average mid-20s during the day. And
Sounds like you could do with some of that right now.
It was, I was freezing. I actually, when I was driving back to my hotel at 3:30 in the morning, I had the heating going in my car to just try and to warm myself up.
In July?
In July, yeah. I clothes-wise, I mean, I had on, I think a long-sleeve T-shirt, a short-sleeve T-shirt, a sweatshirt, a big jumper over the top, gloves, a hat, and I'm underground. That's how cold it was. But it's an amazing place. But the reason I'm saying that is the hotel I was staying in, she was like, I said, how do I get in at 3:30 in the morning? Because do I have to ring the bell? Is there a code? Whatever. And she was like, what are you doing to come back at 3:30 in the morning? I'm going on a ghost hunt. And I was telling her about it, and she was saying how much she wanted to do one, but she's scared of demons.
Mm-hmm.
And I just went, don't believe all the hype. And she went, I've seen it in the films and stuff. And yeah, they're films. I personally don't believe in demons, personally. I know a lot of people that do, and everyone's beliefs are different. That's the great thing about this industry, if you want to call it such, that we can all have different beliefs. And it doesn't mean we don't respect each other. We just have a different belief.
Well, I think what I've learned, and what we could use more of, in my opinion, in this professional field, or whatever you want to call it, you don't have to actually respect anybody's beliefs. You just have to respect their right to have them.
Yes.
And you just have to agree to disagree. So I personally don't like the word demon. I do believe there is such a thing as an inhuman entity. Stuff that has not, necessarily ever walked the planet as a human being in human form. So in the same way, it's got more of a relationship to a shark, in the animal kingdom, something like that.
Yeah.
I think the problem is when you use the word demon, and that does get thrown around a lot in the States. Number one, it's really, really good for ratings on TV shows, which a lot of TV producers have discovered. Yes. And number two, it really requires there's a religious connotation to it, which adds a dimension I'm not entirely fond of,
Yeah.
There's a very much of a Catholic Church kind of exorcist connotation, which doesn't necessarily help us get any closer to a real answer of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. More of an eloquent way of putting it to what I was thinking, but it just made me laugh that, the first thing she said was she's scared of going because of demons. And I said, well, if there's demons and I've been possessed, I'm screwed, because, I've done this for a long time. But the point was that it was the first thing that somebody came at, because they'd seen the films, they'd seen some of the television shows that maybe portray it more in a theatrical, and as you say, a ratings grabbing way, as opposed to this is actually what happens.
Well, and one of the things that I think most good investigators do, I've certainly always made a point to do this when I do private help cases, is you look at what's on the shelves of somebody's movie collection, and their bookshelves also. And I've lost count now of the number of times I've looked at somebody's bookshelves and they have, Blu-ray collection, DVD collection, whatever, and you see The Exorcist and The Exorcism of Emily Rose and those kind of shows, and you're already you've prejudiced yourself to believe that you're dealing with this thing before you ever do any real investigation. You're looking at the world through that filter of belief, rather than saying what's going on here and could there be a non-paranormal explanation.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's a bit like the orbs thing, though, isn't it? People, they know a bit of it, and they automatically assume it's got to be that.
Well, I think the problem is so many people want to believe. With orbs, we've only ever gotten orbs since the advent of the digital camera.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty simple technical explanation, as I'm sure all of the listeners know, as to why we get them. Yeah. But despite that, it's terrifying how many people will go out there and insist, this is phase 3 of a spirit manifestation, and you hear those kind of things all the time. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. Now, if you see it with the naked eye, I won't call those things orbs. I'll call them light anomalies, because I think there are, again, genuine orb-like phenomena going on out there. They're fairly well documented by people I respect.
Yeah.
But 99% of orbs are dust and insects and pollen and particulate matter.
So do you believe if you can't see it with the naked eye, why would it just be picked up on the camera?
Do I believe...
Because when I say Drakelow, there was quite a lot of light anomalies at Drakelow that we can't explain because there's no electricity down there. Mm-hmm. But we saw them with our naked eye. Like 3 or 4 of us would see it.
I think once you rule out things like fireflies, insects, those kind of things, and also flash sources, if you're using a flash, that almost guarantees that what you're looking at is the flash bouncing off a piece of particulate matter.
Yeah, we weren't.
Straight into the...
There was
right,
no electricity, nobody had a torch on, there was nobody else in the tunnel at the time.
So now you're talking, right? Now you've got something that there's investigation. Yeah. And I want to be clear, that stuff happens, and that's what fascinates me. Yeah. You just have to wade through a lot of the mundane to get there.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting. So, you've moved to America, you've based yourself in Colorado, and you've started writing. Well, 13 years on, you started writing. What made you start writing?
When I first got into this field, there were no TV shows. We know that most haunted and ghost hunters were really the pioneers. Those shows didn't exist. So I learned from the works of Peter Underwood, who is still one of my heroes, books by Harry Price, books by American writers, even stuff like The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, which has since been very roundly discredited. So I've always preferred the book as my favorite form of paranormal. I was going to say medium then, and wasn't wanting to make a pun. And so I'd always kind of wanted to join their ranks and see my own work on the same shelves as those guys. That was really it. And so the thing is, it's pretty difficult to get published. And so everyone I know has a healthy fear of rejection. And I thought, why would I go through all that? Why would I write a book only to get rejected? And so the way I hit upon doing it was this. I had a night shift job for a computer company that I really didn't like very much. I was on the way actually to becoming a full-time paramedic. I just hadn't made that leap yet. Yeah. And so I had a lot of downtime in that job. And so I resolved that what I was going to do was I was going to write on the night shift. And that way, if my book was rejected by every publisher, I at least still was a paid writer. I'd gotten paid for my time because I was using dead time to do it. That was the mind trick that I used on myself to write that book. And so I wrote the book, I pitched it, and it was actually a how-to book. It was kind of my lessons learned from paranormal research. And it was rejected. Publishers said, we appreciate this. We like your style of writing. We think it's a good standard. But this kind of book's not selling anymore. Okay. People go to TV for how-to. And that was the kind of rejection where it wasn't, you're a terrible writer, you should probably get some more skills before you try and waste our time again. It was your subject matter wasn't right for us. Yeah. So I wrote back and said, thanks for the feedback. And may I just ask, what is selling? What is, and they said, we really want to sell true paranormal nonfiction, real life ghost encounters. Do you have anything like that? And I said, well, I've got about 20 something years of experience of that. So they said, give us 60,000 words and we'll definitely consider it, which is how I broke in. And the rest, as they say, became my personal history. In Search of the Paranormal was a great book to write. It was a lot of fun. It gave me an excuse to fly back home to England to do one more case, which was the Clink prison in Southwark, London. Yeah. Yep. And that took off. And when you've been published once, it becomes a lot easier to get published 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times. Right. Once you break in, because publishers know that you've met the standard to be published. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm still doing it.
Cool. Well, one of the ones the chapters you mentioned in the book was on the Hotel Boulderado.
Yeah.
Is that still there?
It is still there. I love the Boulderado for very personal reasons. I got married at the Boulderado on their grand mezzanine staircase. Yeah. And then we also did some EVP sessions that night. Got a great EVP at the top of the stairs.
Where so Laura does investigating as well?
She really doesn't anymore. She tolerated is probably the best word. She tolerated that I did it and made an effort to be involved, but it's not her passion. Oh, okay. So, in the same way that a lot of long-suffering spouses do that kind of thing just because it's nice of them. and it stops me nagging her so much. So
yeah, mine wants to come on an investigation to see if he gets scared, because he's a big giant wuss. He might be a former rugby player and a builder, but things that go bang and make noises and shadows and stuff scare him a lot more than they scare me. So he keeps saying he'll come on one with me just to see what it's really like and to see me in action, but I don't think he's ever going to be, as you say, converted.
Well, it depends what you're scared of. The scariest thing that ever happened to me, I don't know if I ever told you this, Penny, but I was in an old abandoned theater up in the mountains here in Colorado late one night, and I was with a fellow investigator, a female. We're standing in the lobby by the glass doors, and the rest of the team is off doing their thing. We're just taking a break, and we try not to go anywhere alone just for safety reasons, especially when you have a building that's crumbling about your ears. So we're standing in the lobby. I have my back to the door, and all of a sudden her face went white, the classic you look like you've seen a ghost face. And she said, "You're never going to believe this. There's a cowboy behind you." And I said, "Don't mess about. We don't, this is not an episode of Scooby-Doo." She said, "No, seriously, turn around. There is a cowboy behind." And I turned around, and sure enough, there's this old, grizzled guy dressed in the cowboy hat, Stetson, He looks about 75 years old. And I'm like, oh, my God, because this is an old Western town. This guy looks like he's stepped out of a Western.
Yeah.
And so he looks at me with just giving me the stink eye, this nasty gaze, angry look. And I look at him, and I open the door, and he goes, "It's Friday night." And I say, "Yes, it is." And I'm trying to resist the urge to reach out and just touch him to make sure that I can. And he goes, You're in the old theater, aren't you? And I go, "Yes, we are." And I'm just now getting up the nerve to reach out and see if he's real. And then he said, "Are you kids cooking meth in there again?" And so it turns out he's just a random local wandering back from the bar at midnight. And I'm like, oh. So I got talking with this old gentleman. I explained what we were doing, what we were all about, and what paranormal research was. And he said, "Well, that's good." And he pulled open his jacket slightly, and there was I could see the handle of a pistol in there. Because he said, "Because we know how to treat meth dealers in this town, son." And then he disappeared into the night. I'm like, it's still the most frightening thing that's ever happened to me.
The sheriff is in town.
Yeah. And being English, I've got the meth teeth anyway, so I can kind of see why he thought that.
There is that, isn't there? You mean you've not had your teeth fixed in 19 years since you've been in the US?
No, not even being on the telly. My wife keeps saying I should do it, and I know. I don't like dentists. What can I say?
First thing I'd do if I had access to that kind of stuff in the US is have my teeth fixed. Talking about television, nice little segue onto the television. When did you first get into appearing on the television shows? Was it Haunted Case Files was your first one? Or Paranormal Investigator, as we know over here?
So over there in the UK, it's Paranormal Investigators. I think it airs on Really TV. So Haunted Case Files, and basically they were looking for paranormal investigators that wanted to share their true stories. And so I wasn't going to turn that down. It was a cool opportunity. My wife said, "You'll never get this job. We're Americans. We don't put our ugly people on TV." But it turns out they do. So I did a season of that, and then the Haunted Case Files just got renewed, so we just shot the second season.
Yeah.
And because I must have done a decent enough job with that they wanted to work with me again. Being the haunted hospitals guy, I'd written a book called The World's Most Haunted Hospitals. They asked me to consult on a new show which looks at nurses, doctors, and paranormal investigators' experiences that have investigated old hospitals or that have had. So I consulted on that. I'm kind of a talking head on that show right now. That's already been sold to the UK. I want to say it's on Quest Red is the channel.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
And that's they've sold it to the UK before they've sold it, I gather, to any of the American channels. So I'll be on British screens.
The UK loves their medicine-related stuff anyway.
Over here, like the real life, all that stuff.
Well, not even just fiction, like the real life, like 24 Hours in A&E and all that kind of thing. Absolutely love it over here. I must admit, I love it. I do enjoy watching it, both the fiction and the non-fiction. But,
oh yeah, even when I was a kid, Penny, my mum used to love that show. What was it?
Angels?
Your Life in Their Hands. No, Your Life in Their Hands. Do you remember that show?
I remember the name. My one when I was little was Angels.
All right. I
Do you
don't remember that
Angels,
one.
the hospital one?
No.
Oh, it was all about the nurses. Yeah. Because I
But
wanted to be a
love-
nurse.
It's a tough job, and my hat goes off to any nurse, anybody that does it.
Yeah, I changed my mind when I was 11, when I saw a Chinook helicopter doing a rescue. And I decided at that point I wanted to be a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And my dad, who's very RAF, sort of said no daughter of mine would ever be in the Navy. You can fly with the RAF if that's what you really want to do. And so, yeah, my job changed quite a lot. And I still don't know what I want to do.
My brother's in the RAF. He's in the RAF regiment. Shout out to you, Matt, if you're listening. Yeah. And I keep hearing he might drop in at Sage Paracon too.
Oh, if he wears his uniform, I'm sure people will be happy.
Yeah, I don't think he will.
No?
He's like a blonder version of me. He got the looks and the brains in the family. But he'll be floating around, I'm pretty sure. And it'll be good to catch up with him.
Is he based close to where Sage is happening then?
It's within driving distance. I'm obviously not going to say where it is.
No, I just wondered if it was that part of the world.
Yeah, but it's interesting just because now I've built him up. I have to knock him down a little bit because he's my kid brother. He came when I investigated 30 East Drive at Pontefract.
Yeah.
He came in and he was getting a ration of crap from his wife and from his kids. I get over to see him maybe once a year, so we always try and catch up.
Yeah.
And we went to the pub. So he drove all the way down to Pontefract. We went to the pub for a morning. I got to see my niece and nephew. It was awesome. And then he said, I don't know why you're staying in that place, mate. I've seen that on TV. I've seen that on YouTube. You must be out of your mind. And I said, you should come on. Come back with me and come and have a walk around. And, of course, the family's going, do it. And so now the man that has medals he can't show you for for things that he can't tell you about, he's in this position where he's got to come look around this haunted house and lose faith. So he came in and he was like a cat on a hot tin roof. Like I can only imagine he could have been on patrol in downtown Fallujah or something and looked more relaxed than he was inside that house.
So a big military dude was scared.
Yeah. He can shoot at you all day long and he can deal with real physical danger all day long, but he's not so good with the ghosts, my brother. Love him madly.
But see, that's what I was saying about my husband. People don't scare him. Like, living people don't frighten him. Ghosts, on the other hand, scare him. I'm the other way round.
Yeah,
living people scare
common
the
sense
shit
is the
out
other
of
way around.
me. But the dead, I can handle them.
Yeah, they're usually pretty friendly, aren't they?
Exactly. So, you've got the Haunted Hospitals television series, which will be coming out imminently in the UK. That's because of the book you wrote, The World's Most Haunted Hospitals, which is actually what's guilty for me finding you, Mr. Estep, because I bought that book because I thought it looked quite interesting, and then I thought, oh, this author seems to know his stuff, and that's how I got in contact with you. So, it's that book's fault. But in that one, I mean, you talk about lots of things to do with hospitals in general, and you say that love, hate, fear, anger, excitement, relief, heartbreak, depression, anxiety, all of those and many more emotions are played out against the backdrop of a house of healing. And it's normally, for a lot of people, it's the place they come into the world and it's the place they leave. But the first chapter in that is actually on, I know it's one of your favourite places, and having had the privilege of doing a show on Haunted Histories with yourself and Cammy Anderson, it's somewhere I'd love. It's on my bucket list one day to get out there. Cammy even said I'd have a private tour if I really wanted one, which...
Oh, she's so nice.
It should blow my mind to do that, because we were watching the second Ghost Adventure. They revisited it, didn't they? They went into the bit that had been the former care home part.
That's right.
And I was watching that episode, and the husband's sitting there, and sort of Cammy comes on and went, oh, I know her. And he's like, will you shut up doing that every time we watch these programmes now? Oh, I know her. Oh, yeah, I've talked to her. Yeah, they're friends of mine. But Asylum 49. And you actually wrote a whole book on it in the end with Cammy.
And there'll be another in the works, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So what is it about Tuella, or Asylum 49 as it's also known, that attracts you to it and has got you to write a chapter in a sort of a compendium about hospitals, a book in its own right, and you've got another one coming out?
So I fell in love with the place. Every so often you'll fall in love with a haunted location, and it's not necessarily for the reasons you would think. And in this case, Well, let's deal with why I think it's haunted first. So it's an old hospital that was closed down about 15 years ago, give or take. And it languished for a while, and the people that bought it turned it into a full-contact Halloween haunted house, which means that every Halloween, there is blood all over the walls, fake blood, I hasten to add, and people go in there for this experience of getting scared. You've seen these kind of haunted house attractions, right? They pop up all over the place around Halloween. But it's full contact. They sign a waiver, they get slammed in coffins and all kinds of stuff. So you have a lot of people going through there with the intention of getting scared, as many as 30,000 a season. It's a constant parade of people, all generating this strong emotion. So you have an already haunted building, and then you introduce this energy source that the entities can use as fuel. It's right next door to the town cemetery, which I'm not sure if that has a huge bearing or not, but there is evidence that there have been one or two, shall we say, drop-ins at that location from time to time as well. But you've essentially got, Zach Bagans coined this phrase in relation to Asylum 49, you've essentially got a ghost factory. It's quiet for much of the year, but then when the haunt is on, when you have all these people coming through, it goes incredibly active. So my first visit to Asylum 49 was in something like April. I was writing World's Most Haunted Hospitals, and it was a really quiet night, and it was really quiet because I was there pretty much off-season. And while things do still go on there off-season, by far the most active time is when you have the Halloween activity going on. So I always move in with a team of paranormal investigators for a week over the Halloween period. I'm doing that again this year. And we've just gotten the most incredible results. But the main reason I love the place is it's got a real family atmosphere. Most of the performers in the haunt are either children or young adults. And Tooele is a small town. It's not the kind of place where there are a lot of options for kids for, things that they can do at night, things that they can do at weekends. So it's become a big surrogate family for a lot of these young people. And I was very fortunate to be accepted into that family just because I'm around there so often. I've gotten to know everyone. And it's like going home to see family. And we also encounter the same entities time after time. We get EVPs from the same spirits. So it really does feel like we're all on board the same kind of train.
And if anyone wants to hear about those spirits, you either buy Richard's book or listen to the Haunted History show Richard and Cammy and I did on Asylum 49, because it was a very interesting place.
It is, and it was covered on first season of Paranormal Investigators, and it's also featuring on Haunted Hospitals. Awesome.
And to be fair, I mean, I don't know Kim. Is it Kim? Cammy's husband?
Yeah.
Kim? I've not had a chance to speak to him yet, but I know Cammy is awesome. Such a lovely lady, and so generous with her experiences and talking about the place. And she's got a real love for it, hasn't she? She's got a real love for the place. She calls it her life's work, and I don't think that's an exaggeration. But they do so much parenting. It absolutely impresses me to see that you have kids, some of whom are at risk. We would define as at-risk kids. They're very vulnerable, and we see them all pulling together as one. And probably also, I've just got to share this, even though it's kind of revolting. I love the fact that they give a cash prize at that place. Anytime they can get a customer to soil themselves, then it's a $50 cash prize on the spot, which I think that's one of the most innovative things I've ever seen any employer do ever. Well, let's be honest. Kids and the thought of someone soiling themselves is just kind of so sort of fun to them, and it's that kind of, it's almost like sort of fart humour, isn't it? It is, and the last time I saw this done, they don't let people in there who are intoxicated, but every so often one slips through. It was a drunk guy dressed as a banana. Okay. And let's say I've never seen a banana brown so quickly. Oh. And the performers were very happy to get their $50 prize, but it's kind of a badge of honor. That's how scary. Oh, love it. Well, then, one of your next books, I don't know if I'm going quite in chronological order here, but you came over to the UK and you actually came to Essex. That's right. And you went to the Cage. And you wrote the book with Vanessa Mitchell, who, again, we've had on the show. She's a friend of mine. Spirits of the Cage. Did you approach Vanessa to do the book, or did Vanessa approach you, or because you came over with our mad priest, didn't you, for this one?
I did.
Yeah.
I would have been kind of suspicious if Vanessa had approached me. Whenever somebody owns a haunted location and says, "Hey, come in, write a book, publicize my place," you've got to be suspicious of that. So I actually approached Vanessa. I'd seen the show on what was Michaela Strachan's show, Great British Ghost. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, this is a witch's prison. It looks like it has quite a history, but one of the more attractive things about it was how small it was and therefore how manageable. So I didn't have to take 25 people to go cover the cage. You can do a decent investigation there with 3 or 4, just a handful.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, okay, here's what we'll do. I'll give you the keys. You come on over. I don't like going there too much at night if I can avoid it. So I'll give you the keys. You can come and go for a week and let me know how it goes. And that's exactly what we did. I moved in with a nurse, a friend of mine who was kind of new to this. So Caroline and Leslie were the 2 English ladies that are friends of mine that agreed to come in and investigate with us. And Stephen, who is a paranormal investigator / priest / world-class cellist.
Is he really? I didn't know that.
He is. He's a phenomenal musician and music teacher. We flew over and we moved in there for 5 days and immersed ourselves in that environment. And it was, again, why did I pick January, February? It was so cold. Thankfully, we had electric heaters.
But the thing is about the cage, it's always cold, isn't it? No matter how many
it's
heaters
colder.
you have in there.
Yeah, it's colder inside than outside.
Yeah.
Which is genuinely odd. I noticed that. No matter how the weather got, you were always warmer when you would go outside. Leslie would go outside for a cigarette break. Nasty, filthy habit. And I would go out to keep her company and just to get warmer.
Yeah. I understand that. I do understand that. Another book you wrote, I mean, the thing I like about your writing, Richard, is I've seen it change along the years. I've seen the way that you write change. And it's kind of got more confident, the way that you write. That's the only way I can think of to describe it.
That's because I write drunk now.
Is that what it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no, well, actually, it still makes sense. There's no slurring. So you must be quite a sort of a coherent drunk. But it's got more confident, the way you talk, the way you explain how something's happened, I think. But you don't stay in one place. You do tend to sort of go off in different directions of the places
I meander
that you write
on tangents, yeah.
No, not in the way you're talking. I like that. I mean, the places you investigate, you don't stick to one genre of place. Because one of the following ones you wrote, I don't know if I'm going in chronological order here, but you wrote one on Gettysburg. Mm-hmm. So
That's
very
right.
different to The Cage, very different to Asylum 49. What drew you to writing on Gettysburg?
Well, firstly, I think the reason my writing's changed, just because you commented on that, is that I've lost the desire to try and convince people. I used to be one of those paranormal investigators that wanted to get the evidence and show you and convince you, Mm-hmm. And now I've reached the point where it's just, here's what happened, here's what I found out, here's the debunking I could do, here's the story, believe it or not. And if you choose not to, that's fine. I won't lose any sleep over it. You should probably be reading somebody else's books.
Yeah.
So I kind of found my tribe. And in that case, I cut out a lot of the attempts to convince people, I think, that I used to be passionate about. I've always been a huge Civil War enthusiast. And I've no idea why that is. But ever since I was a young man, I found the American Civil War fascinating. And Gettysburg is that key thing where... the whole place, the whole town, once you go there, there is truly something in the air. Mm-hmm. It's hallowed ground as far as Americans are concerned. More blood was shed, more American casualties in one weekend than the entire Vietnam War. It's a fairly small area. So it would be remarkable if that place were not haunted, I would say.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that when it comes to history, leaving ghosts aside for a minute, to walk in the footsteps of great men and women, to actually stand in the places they stood, and Gettysburg's relatively unspoiled. Yeah. The only thing that spoils that battlefield today, frankly, is a bloody McDonald's, which they've put up. But they've done a really good job of. You won't see obvious cell phone towers and stuff like that. Yeah. Aside from the battlefield is very, very close to how it was back in 1863. Yeah. And I think history comes alive, and it's easier to feel drawn to those men and women that went through those great events, if you're literally walking on the same stretches of Earth. So I love Gettysburg dearly, and I got to write about one of the cavalry actions in a haunted hospital. And I'm actually going back in August to write about one of the haunted locations in the center of the town. So a second Gettysburg book is on the cards for later this summer.
Brilliant. And then another one you did, which we talked about on a show, was Malvern Manor. The Devil's Coming to Get Me. Mm-hmm. Again, very different to Gettysburg. Yes, it has got a kind of a medical-ish type link, hasn't it? Because of some of the uses of Malvern.
It does.
In its, and that is probably one of the common things I have noticed in some that because of your occupation, you can switch onto the medical side quite easily to talk about it, which is great. What prompted you to write the Malvern Manor book?
Well, I saw a Malvern Manor first on Paranormal Lockdown, and it looked like quite the location. It looked fascinating, and I'm always concerned with TV shows, how much of it are they overplaying, you know?
Yeah.
So I had some friends that had investigated there. It's about a 9-hour drive from where I live. It's 2 states to the east of us.
Right.
And they said, no, we got some incredible activity there. It deserves its reputation. And so I reached out to Josh Hurd, one of the owners of Malvern Manor. He's very, very pro paranormal investigator, and said, Josh, I'd love to come and
tickets.
The king of the shit tickets.
Yeah.
Can we say that word on this broadcast? Are we allowed? We did, I guess.
We've done it. Yeah, if I'm getting sacked, it's your fault. Yeah. Well, it's Josh's fault. Yeah. It's Josh's fault if I get sacked.
That's the 2 things to know about Josh. Number 1, he looks a lot like Kiefer Sutherland. And number 2, other than owning a haunted manor, he's got a great turn of phrase. So he's a guy that handed us the key and said, I've left you plenty of shit tickets. You'll need them. That's his phrase for toilet paper. And what drew me to Malvern Manor, I think, was that it was a care home, but before that it was a hotel.
Yeah. So
you've got a building that basically is the very center of this small town. Malvern was a railroad town, and its prime function until I would say the 1930s or 40s, when we started to see the interstate highway system being built, was a stop on the railroad for travelers that were moving through. You know, it was a fairly common place to get off the train, spend a night in a hotel, and then became this medical and senior citizens care facility, old folks home.
Yeah.
And so you've got a lot of personalities there over the years. Again, a lot of strong emotion, people passing through with various energies. And it had this great reputation for being haunted, so I wanted to move in and see for myself.
And was it?
It was very active indeed. One of the great delights, I see more and more owners of haunted locations seem to be running guest books. And the most incredible, there is some comedy gold. The 30 East Drive guest book, for example, any of your listeners that have been there will know if you've read the guest book. It's full of lots of comments, good and bad. It ranges from this is all a scam to this place is so active it's terrifying. And then about 3 pages of comments about how bad the local takeaways are. You know?
I've not been to East Drive, so I couldn't actually comment on that one, but you've got to worry about the important things.
Yeah, it's kind of a Yelp review in a guest book. But I was going through the Malvern guest book, and some of the experiences people had there were just, spine tingling. So we had a lot of good stuff go on there ourselves. We'd been there maybe half an hour when one of my investigators started bleeding from the ear, which are very unusual indeed, and still not entirely sure how or why that happened. We had doors close on us as we were in plain sight. We got some great EVPs, some great spirit box activity. About the only thing we didn't get was anything in the way of actual apparitions, but we got disembodied steps and those kind of things. Yeah. And again, I never expect a location to be spectacular, and very few of them are. Malvern wasn't spectacular, honestly, but the story behind it, you get enough activity that coupled with the history, the personalities involved with it, are what draw me to try and tell that story to people that want to read my books. Yeah. And the title, The Devil's Coming to Get Me, was a sweet old lady who was suffering from multiple personality disorder. She had over 13 distinctly documented personalities on file, including one of a gruff-voiced old man. And when his personality was at the fore, she would sit in her room and just repeat over and over again, "The devil's coming to get me. The devil's coming to get me."
Wasn't she the one that they thought she actually had a man in her room because they couldn't believe that it was her voice?
New staff members would say, "Who is that in Gracie's room? Who's that guy in there talking?" They'd go and check, and it was Gracie herself. So, just it's the people behind the rooms. It's the people behind the patient charts that fascinate me, because we're all going to get there one day, sooner or later, right?
It's one of the things about this this whole thing that I like, though, Rich, is the fact that when you're looking into it, you don't have to just look into the famous people. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to just look into, everyone knows about Anne Boleyn's hauntings, or I'm trying to think of famous ones now, or the Dick Turpin, like a highwayman. There's real people who their stories are just as fascinating, and they're just as needing to be told as the famous ones. And
I think
that's
what
true. I enjoy about it. That's what I enjoy about doing the history side of it as well as the paranormal side. It's trying to tell the story of the people that a lot of people won't know, or won't even remember, or don't think are important. But they are so important and so fascinating when you can learn about them.
When I started doing this, I was very much an equipment-oriented person. I was very much the guy that wanted to wire up cameras, and I was all about, I want as many EVPs as I can get. I want evidence. And then as I began to write, I started to change my style. I still have friends that are very much that way, that are all about the evidence. But I'm now interested in the story, and the story is the men and women whose lives we're following in their footsteps. We're looking at, and they basically are us. I mean, we think of people in history as removed from us, but they're us. They had the same hopes, fears, dreams, aspirations, worries. They worried about paying their bills on time and making the mortgage or the rent. They worried about illness and disease, and they were stressed about all the same things. Yeah. So, I'm more interested now in those kind of souls themselves than I am about just capturing evidence, although evidence is great when you get it.
Oh, yeah, it blows your mind when you get it, but I agree with you there. So, you've got more books coming out, obviously. You've got one coming out on Bob in jail quite soon. Would that be?
Yeah.
That's going to be coming out.
That's halfway done. That will be out for sure by the end of the year, probably by Sage.
Okay.
I'll have that with me.
You're working on one on Fox Hollow Farm, which I'm looking forward to the Bodmin one, but I'm also looking forward to Fox Hollow, because I think that one's got quite an interesting story to tell. Herb Baumeister story, and you've investigated there a couple of times now, haven't you?
I have, and that's, I would say, pound for pound, the creepiest, most disturbing place I've investigated ever.
Okay. Oh, that sounds good. What other locations are you working on at the moment?
So back to Gettysburg, I'm looking at the Farnsworth House. Then changing gears a little bit, in September, I'm doing a haunted road trip in Iowa, just to drop back by Malvern Manor and see my friends there. But the three locations we're hitting are the Squirrel Cage Jail. We all know that prisons seem to be haunted, and I want to hit that. The Villisca Axe Murder House.
Yep.
Which I think you're talking to Johnny Hauser about that later this year on your show, right?
No, I talked to Gina Passante of Three Girls in the Dark. We did a show on it earlier in the year, but I don't know where I'm going to... I know Johnny and I are going to talk next year, probably next year now. I'm not sure yet where we're going to talk about. It might be another one on Villisca, seeing as he basically lives there.
Yeah, he's the expert on the place, I would say.
Yeah, so we might talk Villisca again. We haven't 100% decided where we're going to talk about yet. It's kind of open. But,
well, that's another place with a fearsome reputation and a fascinating but very tragic story behind it. So I'm hitting Villisca, and then I'm also going to be hitting... I'm writing a book about the Farrar School, which... Did you ever see a show called Ghost Stalkers? Was featured on that.
Of it.
I want to say that was Chad Lindbergh and John Tenney did that show.
Right. No, I've heard of it.
So that I'll be moving into the Farrar School with a couple of fellow investigators to try and figure out what we can about that location.
Wonderful. Okay.
And then right after that, it's Sage.
So where would you... We've only got about 5 minutes left of the interview. So where would you love to write a book on? What location would you love to study and write a book on?
The one that I would most love to do is Alcatraz.
Right.
And I know it's been done. There are already a couple of ghost books out there. I'm starting to like prisons more and more, and that's a location I forgot to mention. I'm going to jail again in October of this year to Cripple Creek, which we covered on season 1 of Paranormal Investigators. But this time I have a bunch of paranormal investigators who are also prison officers coming in from Canada.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, I lose track of what I said to who. A guy called Wes Coleman and COPS, the Correctional Officers Paranormal Society. Big shout out to those guys.
Awesome.
We're going to actually be locked down. We talk about the paranormal lockdown thing now. It's become vogue. But literally, in cells, can't get out overnight.
And you told me you were going to lock yourself down at Cripple Creek, because I just think the name Cripple Creek, it sounds so American. I think
it does,
I love it. I love it. And you told me you were going to get locked down in there, but you didn't tell me you were going to actually have prison officers.
Yep.
Oh, that's so
and they're
cool.
they're also fully trained paranormal investigators. So I'm really not looking forward to spending a night in cell. I mean, actually, we're going to be there for 4. I'm really not looking forward to it at all. But I do think that sense of being vulnerable, of being trapped, of not being able to get out, will probably do some very interesting things for the energies.
So,
don't you think?
Oh yeah. So when are you doing that? October.
That's in October. That's 2 weeks before. So it's going to be a busy October. I have that.
You've got Asylum 40. You've got Asylum 49 at the end of October, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've got Asylum 2 weeks after Cripple Creek, and then the week after Asylum, I'm home for 2 days, and then over to Sage Paracon to see the Sage Tribe. It's going to be a busy autumn for me.
Cool. You'll be hugging the puppies and the cats, the puppy and the cats, and then whizzing off again.
Yeah. You know that whizzing means peeing to Americans, right?
Oh, does it? Oh, not over here. All right.
So
popping off again.
I kind of like the way you
shooting
put
off.
Yeah, that's
they've all got
so
bad connotations if you think about it.
They do. Yeah,
flying off again.
There you go. It's going to be crazy, and I'm wondering if I'll be able to sneak in a case while I'm over there in the UK. We'll have to see.
Well, you're not going to be a million miles away from Drakelow at Sage.
That's true, but Sage is a weekend, so I'll be looking for something probably midweek. Which
I know. Dusk Till Dawn do a Wednesday night there sometimes.
I might look into that.
You might need to get in contact with Dusk Till Dawn.
Not a bad idea.
There you go. Make sure you let them know I referred you.
I surely will.
You know, I like to get I like these groups to know that I do mention them to other people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just take what they give me and run with it.
Absolutely.
Well, as always, Rich, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
You also, Pen.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. And I know we'll probably speak again soon, because you'll keep me posted with what's happening with Sage, and maybe we'll actually talk again sooner, so we don't spend an hour and a half chatting and catching up before we start recording the interview.
Yeah, that'd be wise, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
keep the spouses happy.
Yeah, he's already rolled his eyes at me and gone out to walk the dog. So, he's well.
Can't say I blame him.
He's back. He's actually back. So he's probably going to be looking at his watch and seeing I'm still chatting. But hey ho, he'll get over it.
Has he not got football to watch?
No, it's over. It's all finished.
Oh, I don't keep track.
No,
okay.
Neither do I. The final was at 3:00 this afternoon, and it's now sort of 25 to 9 in the evening. So, but no, he's just come back in because it's so hot at the moment that we don't take the dog out during the day. So she goes for a walk at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the evening, so that it's not too hot for her. But as always, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Rich. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks for the interview.
No, it's been nice. It's been nice to talk about something slightly different to what we normally talk about as well. So we get to talk about all your different books and how you got into it. But don't forget, Sage Paracon between the 8th and the 11th of November. They've got the Facebook page. There's a website. You can go on there to look how to book the tickets. There'll be meet and greet. And we didn't even mention Richard will be doing a presentation, but he won't tell me what it's on. Apparently, it's a secret at the moment. So...
It's exactly what MJ tells me it's going to be on.
I didn't know you did as you were told. As you were told.
Definitely when I'm working for a boss like MJ. She knows what's going on, that lady.
She has a plan. There's a plan. And she obviously is like Baldrick. She has a cunning plan.
She does.
Yeah. But anyway, so leave it at that. This has been Penny G. Morgan standing in for Kerry Greenaway's Spirit Dimension show. Obviously, Parasearch Radio has shows on 6 nights of the week, but you can catch it at any time if you want to listen to us. Just go over to YouTube or Spreaker, and I'll just leave it at that, really, and say thank you all for listening. Obviously, Kerry will be back as normal next Sunday, and I'll be back on Wednesday with the Haunted History Show. So take care, all of you, and sleep tight.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows
Hi,
throughout
this
the week.
is Jane Harris
Find us
from
on Facebook,
Paranormal,
Twitter, and the
you're
web.
listening to Parasearch Radio with your host, Kerry. This year, why not join us at Coombe Abbey Hotel from the 8th to the 11th of November at the Sage Paracon VIP weekend, a weekend full of all things paranormal. Tickets are on sale now from www.sageparacon.co.uk. But those tickets are limited, so don't miss out. Get yours today, and I'll see you there.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension on Parasearch Radio UK with your host, Kerry.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.